Hey everybody, it's Joe from the Strange Voyage Files. It's July 21st, 2026, and I want to talk about Black Sabbath and the crucial mistake. And I believe the crucial mistake, and I think a lot of people probably agree, I think the band does, is that when Ozzy was fired and Dio came in, they should have changed the name of the band, which they wanted to do. Now you go as far back. There was a radio interview that was unearthed about 5 or so years ago. That's all over YouTube. I'm sure if you're a big Sabbath fan, you've heard it of Ronnie talking about Ozzy, and it's actually a response to Ozzy. And Ozzy kind of starts blasting him, and Dio starts blasting. He blasts right back, and he, basically calls Ozzy an animal, and that the guys in the band have never said anything good to say about him except for Bill. But one of the things he says is this isn't the same band. This is not. He said one of the things that I agree with Ozzy when he played the radio, the DJ played the clip was Ozzy says this isn't this isn't Black Sabbath, and Ronnie says I agree, this isn't the same band. Now, of course, the reason the band name was kept was management. I believe it was Don Arden at the time that was running them. In the record company, it's very easy to sell Black Sabbath. Even though they were kind of in a lull, it's an established name. But, just like the flip side, where Sharon the Troll, instead of calling it Blizzard of Oz Band, which is what it was, she called it Ozzy Osbourne because it was easier to market and more money in her pocket, the greedy troll. But they did not want it to continue as Black Sabbath because Black Sabbath was Ozzy, Tony, Geezer, and Bill. And one other thing that you need to remember that's very important is Geezer leaves. And that's another big factor as to why Tony wants to call it something else. And, so now Geezer's gone. Bill is showing signs of fatigue. This really could be a band if it would have continued to play out. If Geezer would have stayed, Geezer would not have stayed in the band. And eventually Bill would have left as he did. The only original member in the band would have been Tony Iommi. So it's not even Black Sabbath at that point. But of course, because Geezer does come back, Bill stays. You have 75% of Black Sabbath, they call it Black Sabbath. But it is a very different band. There's more melody to it. The songs are not the same. When you hear Ronnie sing on Live Evil, the Ozzy stuff, I don't think to anybody. Everybody says the same thing. I've seen, my buddy Ralph, who does the Almost Human channel, always says that it's just not right. It doesn't sound right to him when Ronnie sings the Ozzy stuff, and I agree. 150%. I don't know anybody who really has said, yeah, Ronnie sings the Ozzy stuff well. It's not that Ronnie can't sing it, because, truthfully, Ronnie's a better singer. It's just, it's not his thing. I think, had they switched the name to Heaven and Hell or something else, that there possibly could have been more of a longevity in the band. Because, yes, Ronnie was brought in as an equal partner. Now, that doesn't happen when Vinny joins the band. Vinny is brought on as an employee, but Ronnie is brought in as an equal partner. It's always still Black Sabbath. Now, to play devil's advocate, especially with Tony, if there was any reservations about changing the name of the band or forming a new band, it would be that Tony would be giving up his control. And Tony always ran Black Sabbath. And it's very comfortable, being in that position. So, and Tony in recent years has said, it probably should have been called something else, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe out of Tony, Geezer, and Bill, Tony was probably the most hesitant, if at all. I don't know. I kind of got to go by what he says. But I could see him being hesitant because why would you want to give up that power? He was the guy running the show. But I think that if they were able to call it something else, yes, obviously you wouldn't have to have the, heaven and hell, devil, where, Sharon the Troll screams and complains that they're using the Black Sabbath name and whatnot and blah, blah, blah. It being a different band, I think it would have taken some, not a lot, not all, but some of the backlash that Ronnie got from not being Ozzy away from Ronnie. If it's a totally different band, if it's not Black Sabbath, even if 3 of the 4 members are there, it would have alleviated some of that. I also don't know if Geezer would have come back. There again, that is possibly another reason why they kept the name Black Sabbath, was to entice Geezer back, because really having 3/4 of the band meant a lot. But Geezer doesn't contribute, even though they all get credit. Geezer doesn't really contribute to the writing in this phase of Black Sabbath. He doesn't write lyrics. Ronnie writes all the lyrics. Ronnie writes melodies. Ronnie's writing music with Tony. We still would have gotten the same Heaven and Hell album had Geezer stayed away. I also think, as time went on, I think that being that if it would have been a real different band, maybe we would have gotten a 3rd, possibly 4th album out of them. Now, again, this is kind of a shoot in the foot, because then you lose Only Die For and Last in Line. Or do those get pushed off to just later years? Who knows? Because it truly would have been more of an equal band. I think they would have stayed together longer. There was always that Black Sabbath is my band, Ronnie. You're just the singer. If Ronnie truly had the equal stake in it, they really... they fired Ozzy, but... it would have been harder to fire him. I think it was easy to fire Ozzy because, Raul is complaining. Ozzy complained all those years there's bad blood and blah, blah. Ozzy quit. And when nothing else was happening, then he went back to the safety net. We can't forget that. And I think if Ozzy had not done that, it wouldn't have been as easy to fire him as it was. I also think that if they would have switched the name to Heaven and Hell or something else after Ronnie joined the band, by the time Ronnie leaves, I have a feeling that future Headless Cross, Tear, Eternal Idol would have all been Tony Iommi solo projects. Very possibly with the same people in the band. But we wouldn't have had this never-ending wheel of, all right, let's bring somebody in and call it Sabbath. Let's bring Ian Gillan now and call it Sabbath. Let's bring Tony Martin in and call it Sabbath. Let's have Lawrence Connell in for an album and call it Sabbath. It just would not have happened. I don't think it would have all been Black Sabbath. I don't know what would have happened with I don't know if there would have been a Born Again album, because if I'm right and they at least put together another studio album, Ian Gillan may have already been back with Deep Purple at that point. So we may have never had the Born Again album, which I would, at this point in time, I would be fine with. I know a lot of people disagree with me, and I'm hoping that one day that changes. And it really does come down to, can you mess with a band that's that legendary? Losing Joe Perry and Brad Whitford, that was a major hit for Aerosmith. Even Karabi was a big hit. My God, Steve Clark, I will sing Steve Clark's praises till I die. Yeah, it made a major difference in Def Leppard. I don't think Def Leppard is not that band. There's another one. They should have called that band Slang after the first album with Viv on. They should have called it Slang or before it or something like that, because that's just not Def Leppard anymore. But there's a lot to be said with keeping the magic. Like Led Zeppelin, you never do it with Led Zeppelin. Even if Bonham never died, you could not take anybody out. And yes, let's say the least important, which is terrible to say, but truthfully, John Paul Jones still wouldn't be Led Zeppelin. And I don't think people would accept it. Definitely couldn't do it with the Beatles. So, is Deep Purple right now? Great band. I mean, you talk about a band that's resurgent and put out some great albums. I got to listen to the latest one. I've heard nothing but good things. But that's not the same Deep Purple. And yes, we can start going down this, this hole of, like Quiet Riot, where there's nobody in Quiet Riot anymore. But I think at that point in time, Black Sabbath should have been put on hold. Especially since we know it wasn't going to last with Ronnie. There's no way it would have gone the distance. Like I said, maybe one, maybe two more albums. There's no way. Ronnie, I'm Italian. I'm Irish and Italian. You talk about a temper. Just if I was German, and forget about it. Two Italians, two hard-headed Italians, clashing. Man, I grew up with it. There was no way that was going to be avoidable. So, yes, it was eventually gonna fall apart at some point. But I think it should have been called something else. And I think at that point in time, then the record company would have been more open, like the Seventh Star. Yes, Tony, fine, this can be your solo project. And going forward, it would have been Tony Iommi solo stuff. So, would we still love it as Black Sabbath? I don't know. Would people still love Headless Cross as much? I think so, because it's still a great album. But, let me know what you think. Do you think that was a big misstep? Do you think that they should have changed the band's name? Should they have kept it to keep the continuity of Black Sabbath? Let me know what you think. All right, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I will see you. And let's see. Always got to press it twice.